Okay, so literally I'm hiding to make this video because obviously I have a newborn at home and she's sleeping. And although she sleeps through sound, I don't want her to hear my voice because then she hears my voice and it's like, so I'm trying to tell you all my labor story. So where do I even start? This is crazy. I was 41 weeks and 2 days. I was literally trying everything in the book that you can think of. I was walking, I was eating pineapple, I was eating dates, um, I drank castor oil, which made me really sick, by the way. I don't recommend it. I did everything, and this little girl was not coming at all. And so at this point, like, I'm getting desperate. It's 41 weeks and 2 days. And I think the day that I was just like, you know what, forget it. Like, forget it. I'm not even gonna bother anymore. She's gonna come when she comes. My induction date was scheduled for July 28th. Mind you, I was due July 15th. So that's another thing that had me anxious. Like, isn't this too much, like too long inside? I'm really scared that she is this long inside. Um, so I sat there, and the day that I was like, you know what, forget it. My mom was like, let's go for a walk. Okay, went for a walk. We walked for like about an hour that night. And my dad came to pick us up because I was really tired. At that point, it's so hard to walk for a long time. I was so tired. My dad came to pick us up, and I told him I'm really craving a McFlurry. I love Oreo McFlurry with extra Oreo. So he said, you know what, let's go to McDonald's, let's go get it. So we went, got it. That night, I felt my stomach a little funny. I'm like, okay, maybe it was the ice cream that didn't sit well. Around 3 in the morning, you are urinating often. So around 3 in the morning, I started realizing that my panties were wet. And obviously, as a pregnant woman, right, you get a lot of discharge. Sorry, putting it out there. Sorry if it's too much information for some people. You do get a lot of discharge, which the doctor told me it was normal. But this was like clear, like liquid. And so I said, this is weird. So I went ahead and I kept monitoring it. 4 in the morning, same thing. 5 in the morning again. And I'm like, what is going on? And I said, you know what? It's probably nothing. I went back to sleep. I said, forget it. At 8 in the morning, I said, I've been seeing this too much and it's just like liquid. It's like water was poured into my panty, but very little. So I decided to Google it. And, it does say that your water can break. And not always is it like in the movies, right? In the movies, you see a woman and you're like, water gushing everywhere. And even in real life, a lot of women go through that. But I've never experienced seeing that. I've just seen it in TV shows and stuff. But there's also a different way where water can come out gradually. So I called the doctor and I told her what was happening. And the doctor said, how many weeks are you? I said, 41 weeks and 2 days. She's like, oh, you need to come in. And then I said, okay, I'll go in later. Because I'm at this point, I'm like, I don't want to go to the hospital and then just be sent back. My induction date was scheduled for July 28th. Whatever. It was July 24th. So I said, okay, I'll go later. The doctor's like, no, you need to come now. And I'm like, okay. So I just like grabbed my hospital bag and everything. I said, whatever, like, I'm just gonna go. They're probably gonna like discharge me. I said bye to my grandma, and I'm like, bye, grandma, I'll see you later, because I'm thinking I'm gonna see her later. What happens? I get to the hospital. Once I get to the hospital, they take me to this room. They ask me some questions, and then they run a couple of exams on me. So they made me put like my butt up, and then after that, I think they put their fingers in, they checked to see if I was dilated. I was not dilated, but then they ran some tests, two different tests, sorry, and one sonogram. And so the first test that they did, it was something with a paper, I think. Well, I'm not really sure, but basically if the liquid turned blue, that means it's my water breaking. Point is, the first test showed that my water broke. The second test that they did showed that it didn't break. And then they did the sonogram. The baby was good. Everything was good. They monitor the heart. As soon as you go in, they put this machine over your stomach to make sure they're checking for contractions and checking for the baby's heart. Everything looked good. But they didn't want to risk it. The doctor said, forget it. You're already here. You're 41 weeks and 2 days. let's just start your induction now. And I said, what? They're like, yeah, you're going to get admitted. And I'm like, what? But, you know, if you go on YouTube and you read all these stories, you start hearing stories about how some women are induced, but they are in the hospital 72 hours, you know. So I'm just like, all right, you know what? I'm probably going to be in the hospital for a while now. So they do everything that they need to do. They change me and everything. And they tell me, you're going to start drinking this liquid. And I really don't remember the name of the liquid. It starts with an M. Misoprostol, something like that. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it to the doctors out there. I'm not a doctor, clearly. So they gave me this liquid, and it was like this much. It wasn't even bad. They said, you have to drink this every 2 hours. This is how we're going to start your induction. I said, okay, no problem. Drank it, cool. You don't feel anything. Afterwards, they sent me to another room, and once I got admitted, and that was my delivery room. And as soon as I went in and I saw it, my heart was just like, what is that? Like, I got so nervous because they were like, oh yeah, the baby's gonna be here. This is where the doctors are gonna set up. And I was just like, oh shit, like this is real. Like this is real. So I'm upstairs at this point. They gave me another one 2 hours later, like that liquid. And I said, okay. They said, do you want medication? Do you want medication? I said, no, I'm good. I don't feel anything. I felt like little cramping, but it wasn't that serious because I get really bad cramps during my period. So then they said, okay, now you're going to start drinking it every hour. So at this point, I think it was like 4 p.m. Mind you, I had gone to the hospital at 11 a.m. on July 24th. So around 3 p.m., I start drinking. I drank another one, and I started feeling pain. And I said, this is painful. So I knew what I wanted, and I wanted an epidural. And I didn't want it at that moment because then you read things and you're like, oh, an epidural may slow your labor down and things like that. So I was just holding out as long as I could. That pain was horrible. Like, I'm not trying to scare anyone. There are so many women out there who do it without epidural. I personally did not want to put myself through that pain at all. I was in so much pain, unbearable. At this point, my husband and I had taken childbirth classes, which was really helpful, and I really recommend it. This doula, she was so amazing. And what we did was we practiced that breathing, and I'm glad I took it with my husband because when you are in that much pain, you forget about all that breathing. You even forget how to breathe. But my husband, he kept remembering and he kept reminding me, like, you know, do this, do that, breathe in, breathe out. And I was just holding on to his hands, and I was like, I can't take it. At one point, I wanted to go to the bathroom, and when I went to the bathroom, I closed the door, and he's like, no, leave the door open. I don't care, just in case something happens to you. Thank God he did that, because literally as soon as I was done urinating, I held myself, and that was the worst contraction I've got. Like, I thought that I was going to fall on the floor. I held on to him for dear life, and I'm like, you feel like you are, oh my gosh, I don't ever want to experience that again in my life. So when I came back, I told the nurse, I need epidural. And I know everyone had advised me to ask for epidural as soon as I needed it because sometimes the doctor takes long. I must say that the hospital that I was in, they came like this. As soon as I said I need epidural, it was like 2 minutes. He was there. And he came. It was so brutal because he told me, okay, I have to sit like this, right? My husband had to sit down, so the nurse was holding my hand. The other nurse was right next to her, and they were like trying to like comfort me while he put the needle in my back. And he's like, you can't move. So I'm like, oh my God. Mind you, at that same moment, I'm getting contractions. And he says, I can't move. I was literally like this with the contraction coming. I don't know how I did it because I was so afraid to move since the needle was going into my back and the contraction was coming at the same time. I was just like, the nurse is like, it's okay, squeeze my hand. And I didn't want to squeeze the poor nurse's hand. I really did not. I was just so so much pain that at one point I said, I'm so sorry. And I just squeezed her hand. She's like, that's what I'm here for. Just squeeze it. The nurses were amazing. Like, honestly, the nurses are heaven sent. I don't know what I would have done without them. They were super supportive. The contractions were still coming so hard. And then after that, they said, are you still feeling pain? Are you still feeling pain? And I said, yes, like I'm still feeling pain, even after they put the epidural. So another doctor came in, and another doctor said, if you're still feeling pain, we're going to have to put the epidural in again. And I said, what? Like, what is going on? So I was just feeling the contractions, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I cannot. I was still feeling the contractions, even with the epidural. That's how like brutal it was. He said he was going to top it. I'm not really sure what that meant. I guess he gave me a little bit more or a little bit stronger. After that, I felt nothing. I didn't feel my legs or anything. I couldn't even move my legs because I didn't feel anything. Now, when they put the epidural in, they put like a little thing where you can pee in because you can't get up anymore. The epidural did make me shake. So I was just shaking. And thank God my best friends told me about that, and my comadre, because I was just shaking. And the epidural made me nauseous. It made me throw up. I immediately just vomited. I was like, they gave me a bag. I knew when it was coming. I vomited so much. Now, I must say, and I forgot to mention this in the beginning, that when they admitted me, they said I cannot eat anything. So for those watching, make sure that you eat on your way to the hospital, because they don't let you eat after that. They have you on like liquid. So they do give you like clear jello, clear soda, stuff like that. Just liquid diet. So at one point I'm just laying there and I'm like, my best friends start FaceTiming me, you know, a few people start FaceTiming me. I'm like, hi, you know, I have the epidural. So I'm like, okay, but I was still getting contractions. And then all of a sudden I start feeling like I peed on myself. And I said, oh, I think I peed on myself. But I didn't know because you can't feel much, right? So I touched down there and I said, oh, it's wet. I'm so sorry. I peed on myself. So I tell my mom, and my mom is like, oh man. The nurse walks in and I said, oh, I'm sorry. I think I peed on myself. I don't know what happened. And she's like, huh? Did your water break? And I'm like, huh? And then she comes, she puts her gloves on, she looks, and she's like, your water broke. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, let me bring the doctor in. She goes, gets the doctor comes immediately. She puts her fingers in to see how dilated I am. She's like, I would say you're like about 7. And I'm like, huh? She's like, you're 100% effaced. I think I'm saying it right, I hope. And then the other doctor comes in and he checks and he's like, oh no, you're ready to push. And I'm like, what? What do you mean I'm ready to push? And I swear everything felt so surreal. Like, what do you mean I'm ready to push? And then he said, okay, let me call the on-call doctor. She already went home, but we're going to have to call her to come back because you're ready to push. All of a sudden, within 5 minutes, everyone just starts storming in, and just dropping things off and setting up for the labor. And I'm just there shaking nonstop. And I didn't know if it was the epidural or if it was my fear of like, whoa, this is about to come true. Like, I'm about to beat my baby today. As the doctor comes in, you know, she's like, okay, you're going to do this, this, and that. Like, she starts telling me things that I can't even describe to you because everything was going in through one ear and coming out the other because I was just so nervous. All I remember is my nurse next to me. She held my hand and she's like, don't worry. We're going to show you how to push. You're going to be fine. And that just calmed me down. And because I had the epidural, I couldn't, and they had topped it off, I couldn't really know when to push. So they were looking at the machine, knowing when I had the contractions, because at this point I wasn't really feeling the contractions at all. So they were looking at the machine, knowing when I had the contractions, and then telling me when to push. So they told me I would have to like put my head down and like push in a way. Damn, I don't remember what they told me, but I remember, I think it was pushing from your stomach. I'm sorry, I don't want to give you the wrong information, but they told me how to push. And I literally was like, oh my gosh. They was like, okay, come on. And Mikhail was here, the nurse was here, and she's like, all right, 1, 2, 3, push. And I had to push for 10 seconds and then stop. And then they would tell me when to push again. So I really don't know how women can sit there and say, oh yeah, you know, I pushed for 2 hours, I pushed for 3 hours. Like, whoa, you women are amazing. Um, with me, I did it in 9 pushes, but let me tell you why. So basically, she came out within like 15 minutes. During one of the pushes, I saw all the doctors stay quiet, like the doctor and all the nurses stay quiet. And then they told me to turn on my side. So when they told me to turn on my side, they were like playing with the machine. And I saw the monitor and I'm like, my baby's heartbeat, what's going on? Like, it's dropping. And they was like, no, everything is fine. And I look at my count and I'm like, no, something is wrong. So I asked again, like, what is going on? And then the doctor said, your baby didn't like one of the pushes. So we may have to like vacuum her out. We're going to use help of the vacuum. And I was just like, what? So at this point, I was so scared because as she's telling me this, like 20 doctors came into the room, and I was just so scared. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I thought something was gonna happen to my baby, and I had all the fear. Like, imagine seeing 20 doctors walk in, and you're just like, what the hell? So all these doctors surrounded me, and they're holding me, and they're just like, okay, we're gonna get this done, don't worry. And they're like really nonchalant, but I am super afraid because I'm like, there's no reason why there's like 20 doctors in this room. The room just got full, full. So like, okay, you're gonna push again. So you are going to push, and we're just gonna use a little vacuum to help, you know, take her out. So they used the little vacuum. I didn't feel anything at all. And in one of the pushes, they're like, okay, her head is coming out. You're there. You're such a good pusher. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. You got this. And I was just like, okay. And then all of a sudden they start taking her out. My mom was like, oh my gosh, she has a lot of hair. And I was just like, oh my God, like she's almost out. And then when she came out, like my biggest fear was that something, you know, was gonna happen to her. And all I wanted was to hear her cry. I was just like, I just want to hear her cry, and that's it. And as soon as she came out, after like a second, all you hear is her cry. And I was just like, oh my God, my baby. I cried so much. It's like the biggest happiness in the world to know, like, or to think, assume your baby's fine just by hearing them cry. I assume like she was just completely fine, which she is, thank God. But I was just so happy, and it was a really emotional moment for me. Like, I couldn't believe that I became a mom, and I couldn't believe that I actually met my baby. You carry this baby for so long, and you're like, I wonder what she looks like. I wonder how she's gonna come out. Is she gonna look like me? Is she gonna look like daddy? Like, you don't know what to expect. You know what I mean? So it was really an emotional moment, and I've never been more happy in my life. They put her on my chest. I was just so happy that she was healthy. Um, and I think that's about it. So they put her on my chest. First they cleaned her and stuff, then they weighed her and all this stuff, and then they put her on my chest, and then they put her on Mikhail's chest. Mikhail cut the umbilical cord, and I didn't have to push my placenta out. The doctors were just like pushing it out on their own. Afterwards, they did tell me, like, once everything was done, the doctor told me that she cut me. And I was just like, oh, okay. I didn't know that I had to ask like how long or how much. I didn't even ask anything. I just said, okay. Like, I really didn't care. I just wanted my baby to be fine. And so my labor, I must say, was amazing. Like, I have no complaints. It didn't scare me. I would do it again. Now, having a newborn at home, that is a complete different story, and a story for another day, because that got real. But I'm going to show you guys my parts of my labor. So I am super excited to read your comments and to see what you feel like. Well, how did it feel to see me in labor?